Today we're going to learn about the slope-intercept form and how it helps us to graph. Before we do that, we need to remember how can we solve 2y plus 4 equals 10 and solve it for y? Well, the first thing we want to do is subtract 4 and then divide by 2. So when we subtract 4, 10 minus 4 gives us 6, and then 6 divided by 2 gives us 3, so y equals 3. That's solving a two-step equation, which is something that we learned how to do. Now, what if we had something like this, y minus x equals 5, and we wanted to solve for y? We're still trying to undo this minus x. So to undo the minus x, we're going to add x. So we get y equals x plus 5, because we added x to the other side. If we have x plus y equals 5 and we want to undo this plus x, we're going to subtract x from both sides. So we get y equals negative x plus 5. If we have negative 6x plus y equals 12, if we want to get rid of this minus 6x here, we are going to add 6x to both sides. So we get y equals 6x plus 12. Let's say we have negative 6x plus 2y equals 12. If we want to solve for y, the first thing we have to take care of is this minus 6x. We're going to take care of it by adding 6x, which gives us 2y equals 6x plus 12. But we're not quite done because we still have to take care of this times 2. We're going to take care of it by dividing everything by 2. So 2y divided by 2 is y. 6x divided by 2 is 3x, and then 12 divided by 2 is 6, giving us this new equation, y equals 3x plus 6. So now let's talk about a term called the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point, so it's an ordered pair, where a line crosses the y-axis. So think about it's intercepting that y-axis. It's intersecting that y-axis. The x-intercept is the point, so another ordered pair, where a line is crossing the x-axis. So it's intersecting the x-axis. If we want to find the x and y-intercepts, we have to let the opposites be 0. So for example, if we want to find the x-intercept, we're going to let y be 0 in our equation. If we want to find the y-intercept, we're going to let x be 0 in our equation. So let's do an example. We're going to find the x and y-intercepts of the line 2x plus 3y equals 6. And then once we have those two intercepts, we can plot them and then graph our line from them. So let's look at 2x plus 3y equals 6. The first thing I want to do is I want to find my y-intercept. So I'm going to let x be 0. So I have 2 times 0 plus 3y equals 6. So I'm going to solve for y. Well, 2 times 0 is 0, so I get 3y equals 6, which means when I divide by 3, I get y equals 2. So now I have the ordered pair 0, 2. Now that I have 0, we are going to do something similar when we find the x-intercept. This time we're going to let y be 0. So we get 2x plus 3 times 0 instead of y equals 6. So 3 times 0 is 0, which leaves us 2x equals 6, which means when we divide by 2, we get x equals 3. So we get the ordered pair 3, 0. So now I've got my two ordered pairs. I have 0, 2 and 3, 0. So I'm going to plot those points, okay? So here is 0, 2, and here's 3, 0. And once I have plotted those 2 points, I just graph my line through those, going through them, and I have correctly graphed my line. So now let's talk about the slope-intercept form. The slope-intercept form of a linear equation is y equals mx plus b, where the m is super important and the b is super important. So your m and your b, those are going to be actual numbers, and they're going to tell us very, very important things about our graph. So the m is going to be the slope of the line, which is what we studied before. Remember, we said that slope is usually that lowercase m, so that's why we have m. And that b is going to tell us the y part of our y-intercept. And remember, our y-intercept is a ordered pair, 0, comma, a number for y-intercept. So that b is going to be that number. It will be 0, comma, b, that b value. So let's do an example. Find the slope and y-intercept of y equals 3x minus 2. Well, since the equation is in the slope-intercept form, it's already solved for y. So all we have to identify is what is the number before x, or m, and then what is our b value that's being added. Well, our slope is going to be m equals 3, and since b is equal to 2, we will say that the y-intercept is 0, comma, negative 2. So it's very important to say that when we say what is the y-intercept, we don't just say negative 2. That's incorrect. A y-intercept is going to be an ordered pair. So we have to say 0, comma, negative 2 for our y-intercept. So we don't always get things in slope-intercept form. So for example, we have 2x minus y equals 10. If we want to change that to slope-intercept form, we have to solve for y. So the first thing we want to do is subtract 2x from both sides. So now we have negative y equals negative 2x plus 10. And now that we've done that, we want to divide everything by negative 1 so that way we can have that positive y. So now we have y equals 2x minus 10. And now that we have it into slope-intercept form, we can easily identify the slope and the y-intercept. So how can we use this information, the slope and the y-intercept, to graph an equation? Well, here are the steps. Step 1, we solve the equation for y to put it into slope-intercept form. Sometimes this step is already done for you, and sometimes you have to do it yourself. Step 2, we're going to plot the y-intercept at 0, comma, b, whatever that b value is in your slope-intercept form. Once you have plotted that point, we are going to express the slope m as a ratio, so as a fraction, to find the rise and the run. And once we have the rise and the run, from the y-intercept, we are going to rise and run to get a point. And then we'll rise and run the other way to get another point. And then we'll have 3 points. And once we have those 3 points, we draw a line through those points to get our graph. So let's do an example. Y equals 3x minus 2. So we know that the y-intercept is 0, negative 2. So we need to plot 0, negative 2 on our graph. Once we have 0, negative 2 plotted on our graph, we're going to look at our slope. Our slope is 3, and we need to express that as a ratio. So we're going to rewrite it as 3 over 1. So we can identify that 3 is the rise and 1 is the run. So we're going to rise 3 from 0, negative 2, and then from there we're going to run 1. And then we are going to put a point there, and that is going to be a plotted point. So again, from 0, negative 2, we move up 3, because that was our rise, and we're going to move right 1 to plot a second point on the line. And you'll notice that that point is the point 1, comma 1. So we're going to draw a line through those 2 points. And then, using our slope again, we can check our graph. From 0, negative 2, we're going to move the opposite direction. So since we rose 3, now we're going to move down 3. And since we went right 1, now we're going to go left 1. And we'll be able to plot a third point. It should be on our line. So here's our plotted points. And there we go. So again, our y-intercept was 0, negative 2. And we rose 3, 1, 2, 3, and we ran 1. And that was our point. So then we went the opposite way. Since we rose and we ran to the right, now we're going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go to the left 1. And that's our third point. Y-intercept was 0, comma 1, and our slope is negative 2, 3. So from that point, 0, comma 1, we need to rise negative 2 and run 3. So again, y-intercept 0, 1. So now we're going to rise -2, which means we're going to go down 2, and then we will run 3. So 1, 2, 3, giving us this point here. Now go back to your y-intercept. Now instead of going down 2, we're going to go up 2. 1, 2. Instead of going to the right 3, we're going to go left 3. 1, 2, 3. And that gives us our third point. Now that we have our 3 points, we connect them to get our line. So let's say we need to find the x and y intercepts of the line 3x plus 2y equals 12. So when we find our x-intercept, we want to let y be 0. So instead of saying 2y, we're going to say 2 times 0. Well, 2 times 0 is just 0, so we get 3x equals 12, so we get x equals 4. Now when we want to find our y-intercept, we let x be 0. So instead of saying 3x, we're going to say 3 times 0 plus 2y equals 12. Well, 3 times 0 is just 0, so we get 2y equals 12, which means y equals 6. So remember, those are not the actual intercepts. Intercepts are ordered pairs. So instead of saying x equals 4, we will say that the x-intercept is 4, 0. And instead of saying y equals 6, we will say that the y-intercept is 0, 6. So what are the x and y intercepts of y equals 5? So this is a little bit harder because we can't let an x be 0 because there's not an x in this equation. It doesn't matter what x is, y will always be 5. So no matter what x is, the y-intercept is 0, 5. If y equals 0 was our equation, then the equation becomes 0 equals 5, which is not true. So because we cannot let y be 0, there is no x-intercept. Look at the equation x equals 5. No matter what y is, x is 5. So that means that the x-intercept is 5, 0. However, if we are looking for the y-intercept, then the equation becomes 0 equals 5, because to get a y-intercept, we have to let x be 0. And so we would get 0 equals 5, which is not true, so that means there's no y-intercept. So let's go ahead and practice. You can do this one yourself. I want you to determine the slope and y-intercept of 6x plus 4y equals 3, and you have to convert it to slope-intercept form. So if you converted right, you should have gotten y equals -3/2 x plus 3/4. So again, you would have to have solved for y by first subtracting the 6x and then dividing everything by 4. So you would have gotten this equation, y equals -3/2 x plus 3/4, which means that our y-intercept is going to be 0, 3/4, and our slope is -3/2. Let's say we want to graph the line y equals -3x. Well, the first thing I notice is that there is no b value, which means that our y-intercept is +0. So we have the point 0, 0 for our y-intercept. So we'll plot that, 0, 0. And then our slope is -3. So we have to rise -3 and then run 1 to get our first point. And then we do the opposite. Since we went down 3, we're going to go up 3. Since we went to the right 3, we're going to go left 1, sorry. And so that gives us our third point. Now that we have all 3 points, we're going to go ahead and connect them to get our graph. So let's graph the line y equals 3x minus 2. So you're going to plot your y-intercept of 0, -2. And then we're going to rise 3 and run 1. There we go. And you can go from that point and do again, rise 3 and run 1 and get a third point. And once you have 3 points, you can go ahead and graph your line. So what if we want to actually write an equation? We actually want to write what the equation is for a line with a certain characteristics. We have a slope of 4 and a y-intercept of 0, 12. Remember, slope is the m value in front of x, and the y-intercept, the y is our b value in our equation. So if we think of y equals mx plus b, we just have to plug in m, which is 4, and b, which is 12, to get our equation y equals 4x plus 12. What if we want a line with the characteristics of slope of 0? So slope of 0 and y-intercept 0, negative 9. Well, that means that my m in front of x is 0. Well, 0 times anything is 0, so that means that it's not really there. So I just have that y-intercept, negative 9. So it'll look like this, y equals negative 9. What about an undefined slope and the x-intercept 5, 0? So remember, an undefined slope means that it's no longer y equals, it's going to be x equals because it's not a function anymore. It's going to be a vertical line, so it has to be x equals. So since the x-intercept is 5, 0, that means we get the equation x equals 5. All right, those are the notes for this section. So it's your turn. You're going to go ahead and do 2 through 6 evens.